Well, hello, my name is Oscar Ramos, and it is my privilege to provide a very general overview of SBL basics today. A little bit about me: I'm the graduate consultant with the Ashland University Writing and Communication Center. And so, if you are a graduate or seminary student in need of writing and communication support, I will often be your main point of contact. Now, let me give you a brief overview of the agenda for this presentation. First, we're going to talk about some general information on SBL. We'll define what it is and how it relates to your writing. Then we'll dig into some very specific formatting guidelines for your writing. And then we'll also follow that up with some general documentation information. Now, you do see a disclaimer down there at the bottom, and I want to make reference to that. This presentation is designed to provide a very brief overview of SBL writing, and it does not replace the second edition SBL handbook. So please refer to the style handbook for more details on citing your sources. And always, please check with your instructor for specific details related to your writing. So let's talk a little bit about general information on SBL style. So first, I want to make mention of the fact that SBL stands for the Society of Biblical Literature. SBL is made up of a community of scholars and experts on biblical and related studies. As you might know, it's the preferred format for any kind of academic pursuit in that particular field, whether that be Old Testament studies, New Testament studies, biblical theology, systematic theology, or pastoral theology. Now, one caveat, though, that I want to make mention of is the fact that if you're a pastoral counseling major within the seminary or clinical counseling major, you might check with your professor to confirm that they want you to use SBL style. Oftentimes in the counseling fields, they want you to use the APA format. So be sure to check with your instructor and your professor on which particular writing format they want you to use. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the SBL handbook and what it is helpful for. Typically, the SBL handbook is very helpful for knowing how to format your papers, also knowing how to cite things within your papers. And then there's additional content for academic publications if you ever would seek after such an endeavor. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some information on the formatting of your paper. Let me give you kind of a big picture perspective on the major parts of an SBL paper. First and foremost, you're going to have a title page, of course. This is literally the first thing that your professor or whomever is reading your paper, this will be the first thing that they see. More on some of the details and specifics of this in just a moment. Next, you have the actual paper itself, the paper text. This is the actual body of your paper. This includes all the main ideas and the related topics that go with them. Now, your paper might be 5 pages, it might be 15 pages, it might be 25 pages. Regardless, the structure of your paper will have a certain format that goes along with the SBL structure that you need to follow. And please refer to what your faculty is requesting you to do, and also refer to the SBL style handbook when you're trying to ascertain what this needs to look like. But generally speaking, it will contain some of the following things that we have here listed for you today. That includes um, headings and subheadings. Now, think of the headings as sort of the main chapters of your paper or the main ideas that you're going to be covering throughout the entirety of your paper. And then sometimes some of these headings will have subpoint to them or subheadings that will go along with them that you want to make mention of and that you want to feature throughout the writing of your paper. In addition, you will have footnotes throughout an SBL style written paper. Footnotes are at the bottom of each of your pages within your paper that actually reference some of the sources that you are pulling in from the outside to produce the original thinking that you are reflecting upon throughout your paper. And then, of course, each SBL paper will indeed have a reference page or a bibliography page. And as you likely know, this is at the end of your paper, and it will be the last thing that your reader or your professor will see. And then each SBL written paper has page numbers to it. Now, there's no page numbers on the title page, but indeed, all of your pages throughout the entirety of your paper, I will have the page numbers at the bottom center of each respective page. Now, on your bibliography page, typically it will be at the bottom center, but you might ask your professor where they would like that particular number located on the bibliography, or maybe refer to the SBL style handbook as you are trying to figure that particular detail out. Let's talk a little bit about the title page. I mentioned this just a moment ago. You can see here some of the different details that go into this part of your paper. Once again, this is the first thing that your professor will see. At the top there, you can see you'll have the name of the institution. So in your case, this will be the Ashland Theological Seminary. And then you'll have the title of your paper and then who you're going to submit it to. In your case, it's going to be a faculty member, or if it's a thesis paper, it might be a thesis board or a thesis committee. Or if it's a dissertation, you might have a dissertation committee. So make sure that you find out the names and you spell the names correctly and you have the correct titles and things that go along with them when you notate these particular details. And then you have the course number and name, and then, of course, your name, and then the actual month, day, and year. So let's also talk a little bit more about formatting your paper. First and foremost, the font style that is typically used with SBL papers is Times New Roman. Now, if you have another font style that you prefer, certainly check with your faculty member to confirm that the one that you would like to use is allowable in their respective class. In addition, the font size typically is a 12-point size. The spacing, for the most part, throughout the entirety of your paper is a double spaced paper. The margins are 1 inches all the way around, left, right, top, and bottom. Now, as far as text justifying and aligning, all text pages should be left justified. This means that each line begins at the same distance from the left margin. You'll see what that looks like here in just a moment. And then, as far as paragraph indentation, some important details here. The first paragraph of each respective section will be left justified. Then every following paragraph thereafter is indented a half inch within that particular section. I'll show you an example of what this looks like on the next slide. So take a look here. You see the primary heading at the top, and that is the title of your paper written in all capital letters. And then you have the first level subheading that is beneath the primary heading, which is the title of your paper, as I just mentioned. And that first level subheading is kind of the first main idea that you're talking about in this particular section of your paper. And then you can see that particular paragraph is left justified. You see everything is consistent on the left side of that particular paragraph. And then all following paragraphs afterwards are indented, as I just mentioned. Then you can see the second level subheading is also centered as the first level subheading is as well. This is like your second main idea. And then your third level subheading, you can see is left justified and it's italicized. So those are important points to take note of. And as always, if you have questions, reach out to your faculty members to ensure you are in good alignment with their preference for their particular class. Okay, last I want to cover just some general documentation information. And so in this section, we'll be talking briefly about some of the major SBL parts that will include your citations and your references throughout your paper and then at the end of your paper. And those two main things are your footnotes and your bibliography. All right, so let's jump first into your footnotes. As you likely know, footnotes appear at the bottom of the page throughout the entirety of your paper. They are numbered sequentially throughout your paper. In other words, they are numbered in the order that they appear. And then, of course, they appear within the text of your paper. They are an in-text citation that are cited with a superscript number. As you know, a superscript number is a very small number. Let me show you what it looks like. You can see on this page, this was a paper that was shared with the Writing Center by Dr. Daniel Hawk. Thank you, Dr. Hawk, who is within the seminary. at Ashland University. And this was a paper that I believe he perhaps submitted to a conference or for publication. And you can see the references down there at the bottom of the page that were used, and they have a corresponding number within the text that allow the reader to know where that particular quotation is coming from or the particular thought that is being shared within the paper. That's why it's called an in-text citation with a superscript number. All right, so those are the footnote examples. I just gave you a very brief glimpse and snapshot of what that looks like throughout your paper. If you have questions about how this needs to be incorporated within your paper, certainly feel free to reach out to the Writing Center and we can offer that additional support. Last, regarding your documentation information, I want to mention something about your bibliography. Your bibliography, as you know, by this time in your academic career, it appears at the end of your paper. And as you also likely know, it's alphabetized. And the way that your bibliography needs to be formatted is you can see the samples below. The first line in each particular reference that is used is left justified. And then all the subsequent lines thereafter for one particular citation or reference, rather, is has a hanging indentation. So once again, if you have questions about these particular details, always reach out to the Writing Center and we can help you make sure that you cite these sources in your bibliography like in the correct way. Okay. So I want to close by just offering a review of what we've talked about in this particular workshop. We have talked about some general information on SBL. We've defined what it is and who uses it and why it's used. We've also talked quite extensively about a lot of details relating to formatting within your paper. We've talked about margins, we've talked about headings, we've talked about font size, and all things like that. And then last but not least, we just briefly covered how you document things throughout your paper and then also at the end of your paper. I want to remind you that once again, I'm coming to you on behalf of the Writing and Communication Center. I'm the casual graduate consultant. And so you can always reach the Writing Center at wcc@ashland.edu. And you can also reach me at oramos@ashland.edu. And then, of course, you can see our website there. Let me just say this in closing. We really hope that you reach out to us. We believe that success in college and beyond requires strong writing and communication skills. So please let us help you enhance your ability to communicate well. Put simply, we want to help you transform your assignments to promote your success as a student and beyond. Thank you for watching today.